Today's lesson is focused more on swing and gypsy jazz, talking about some diminished substitution, some really good stuff here, and then some diagonal arpeggios on the fretboard. Kind of just, again, dedicated just to some improvisation ideas, especially for the gypsy jazz style. Okay, so I'm going to load up this PDF here, grab it in the description, and it's a brand new etude I wrote out, mainly because it was prompted from my students who are asking me questions regarding, which diminished 7 arpeggio can I use on the dominant chord? Many of you already know this, maybe. I'm going to clarify it, and there's actually 2 that you can use, but I'm going to show you the most popular one that is used, especially in swing and gypsy jazz. So feel free to type in the chat who's here. It's good to know. And the PDF will look like this when you grab it. Okay, it's just a bunch of arpeggios. So I'm going to describe what's going on here. If you're on Patreon, there's a sound slice practice video you can use to practice along with it. So I'm going to start off by kind of just talking about the concept here and why Sweet Georgia Brown is such a great tune to learn. Hey Graham, good to see you. So why is Sweet Georgia Brown such a classic tune? Why did Django record it like 7 or 8 times? Because it's super fun, not because he was into the Harlem Globetrotters. It's just a great swing tune, novelty tune. I think it was written in the teens, like maybe 14 or 19, 16 or something, 17, early on. So it's just this catchy novelty tune. I'm not going to go through the melody or anything like that. That's all available, of course, on Patreon. I know many of you have already taken my gypsy jazz classes and swing classes. So let's just talk right about this concept. The concept is this. On the E7 chord, we're in the key of G, and the progression is E7, A7, D7, and G6, 4 bars each, essentially, okay? On the E7 chord, there's 2 diminished 7th arpeggios that you can play. You can play one starting right on the root if you want to achieve the sharp 9 and the flat 5, okay? And then your natural 13. So you can think of it that way if you want to. Okay, that's the first one. I'm just getting right into the information here. The other one, which is what is used most commonly in gypsy jazz, is to start a half step above the flat 9. That can also be the 3rd, the 5th, the flat 7, okay? So I like to think of it on the 3rd. So you have E7, you play off G sharp, okay? The 3rd. So what's important here is that you make sure that you can spell. If I say E7, you say what? Type it in the chat. See how fast you are. E, G sharp, B, D. And then you want to add the flat 9. And if you're wondering what's a flat 9, just take the root. Just go up a half step. There's your flat 9. So call it F natural. Don't call it E sharp, because the natural 9 would be F sharp. So you want to call this F natural. That's the flat 9. So E, G sharp, B, D, F. Those are the 4 starting points for the dim 7 arpeggio to give you that flat 9 flavor. I always say that's the darker flavor. If you want that gypsy jazz darker flavor, you play against the E7, this diminished 7. Okay, G sharp, B, D, or F, or G sharp. Okay, can you use the one starting on E? Yes, you can. That gives you a sharp 9, flat 5, 13. Okay, so, and you can do both. I was talking about this with my student the other day. You could do this. Okay, you could do stuff like that. It's really pretty, actually. However, I'm going to focus more on the latter, starting on the 3rd, 5th, flat 7, or flat 9. Now, I'm going to talk a minute about what I call the diagonal method. Diagonal method means to go this way across the guitar, not this way. Okay, vertical. So it's a combination of vertical and horizontal. And the easy and quick method, by the way, grab the worksheet. It's on Patreon. I'm assuming most of you are on Patreon already. Is to do this quick study, preliminary study. Root. I'm starting on G sharp. I'm calling this the root. Root, flat fifth. Root, flat fifth. Root, flat fifth. Make sure you go up the 3 octaves like this. Okay. I had a diamond tier lesson the other day, and that was one of the tricks I mentioned. It's just, this is a great study. Just tritones. And then once you have that outline of root, tritone, root, tritone, root, tritone, then you add in the minor third above it. And it's easier. And you won't make a mistake. Well, if you do, that's okay. So E7. Again, it's a pretty quick etude. Just grab it. The link is in the description. Etude number 5 here. I have many Sweet Georgia Brown etudes. They're not necessarily in order of importance by any means. I have a special modal study. I've got a special 2/5 study. Then I have, those are the bonus ones. I've got a lot of targeting. I have one that uses a lot of whole tone. But, excuse me, this is the one that demonstrates the dim 7. So here's the ultimate trick that I want you to know. E7, I'm going to start on G sharp as per the etude. Okay, we can put on a backing track, a loop pedal or whatever. If you're on Patreon, use the backing track that's synced up to it on SoundSlice. For the A7, same thing. I ask you A7, spell it for me. You're going to say A, C sharp, E, G. And then if you want to add a flat 9, just go a half step above, B flat. Those are the 4 starting points for the A7. Okay, when you want to use the diminished 7, arpeggio, substitution. Well, we were just on G sharp. Now for the A7, we're going to go down a half step. Okay. Hey Jim, welcome. Thanks for saying hi. Same shape, okay? So again, we're just taking this as a little preliminary study, and I do this for all the diagonal arpeggios. If you want to, again, get the worksheet for diagonal arpeggios, it's on Patreon. So, G sharp dim. Let's swing it a little bit. Okay, that's for the E7. A7. D7. So for the D7, I went down to F sharp. That's the 3rd. So that's the 3rd degree. I like the 3rd. That's the leading tone. I typically started on the 3rd or the flat 7, I discovered. But you want to be able to start on any of those 4 degrees. They're all the same 4 notes. So when you look at it this way, it creates a chromatic line. I'm going to show it to you this way. G sharp dim. Yuri, good luck, or not good luck, welcome. Well, good luck too. G dim. These are the subs, so you could just sub it out if you wanted to. That's for A7. It's dark. Django uses it in the song Tears. He uses it quite a bit in his substitution. Joe Beam uses it too. So that's the first 12 bars, and then you can go to G6. But check it out with chords up here. That's for the A7. For the D7, G6. Up here. Chromatic. You don't have to think. That's the beauty of it. I like not to have to think. We still have one more route. I'll hit the E in the bass so you can hear it. A, D7, and G6. Now on my etude, I did something special for you just to demonstrate, because I've been talking about this a lot with my students also. On the G6 chord, you can play a diminished 7 arpeggio. It sounds nice to resolve it to the major 6. penta or blues. So I like to practice that a lot, like dim 7, G, dim, G6, G dim, G6. Okay, I did G6, G major 7. That's called the tonic diminished there. Django used that quite a bit. I first heard that in the song Tequila. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. That figure there, it's just, you got that diminished, it creates some tension, and the resolution. I was like, that's so cool. But that's on the G, on the 1 chord, essentially. You can do a dim 7 arpeggio, and then it's nice to resolve. So think about that when you're on the 1 chord, on the tonic. It could be major key, it could be minor. Essentially, it's very bluesy. You get the 1, get the flat 3, get the flat 5. I mean, it's just a diminished 7 arpeggio, then you get the 6. So again, then major 6. And this is again the diagonal method for the major 6 arpeggio. So check out my diagonal studies. There is a good YouTube lesson if you're interested on that, diagonal arpeggios. Talk all about it there and go through each one of the different diagonal arpeggios. So that's the first 16 bars for this etude. Goes like this. That's for the E7, for the A7, D7. I know it's too easy, right? We'll play it, make sure you do it with me. And G6, we're doing G dim, then G6 arpeggio descending, and then repeat. I could have been more creative and maybe did some sequences, etc. And that's, you can get some of those ideas on my other etudes in the Gypsy Jazz Bootcamp series specifically. So type in the comments if you have any questions. Don't forget to do this if you're enjoying these live streams. That's what keeps it going, are your likes, so I appreciate it. Let's take a look at the second half here, and I annotated it too so that you know what the arpeggio is that I'm thinking here, okay? Again, this is a pretty quick study, but it's a pretty big study. I mean, you know, you could do a lot of different sequences and patterns, diminish ideas. You don't have to just blaze through all 6 strings. This is just a technique study too. But you can do stuff like this. And then down a half step. Down a half step. And then G6. And then repeat. You know, you can do it as a chord exercise or whatever. It's just allowing you to kind of not have to think so much. For me, it's nice not to have to think. I kind of have these strategies that I like to use, and I know I'm getting a very particular sound. And again, I love this. I like the same idea, similar concept with the whole tone scale too. So again, let's go through this nice and slowly. Hopefully you have your guitar with you and you're doing this with me, because you might say, oh, I keep messing up on the 3rd string and the 2nd string. That's usually where a lot of people mess up, including myself, right? So I want to make sure I practice this 2-fret span, because otherwise it's just a 1-fret diagonal, right? As you cross strings, it's just 1 fret. Until you get to the 3rd and 2nd string, you have to add 2 frets because of the tuning, of standard tuning. Descend. Down half step. D7. G dim. G6. E7. And then there you can ad lib, and now you're going to be like, oh, I know my diminished 7 arpeggios. Whenever you have one, you can move it down a half step from where you're at. You can also move it up a whole step from wherever you're at. So if you're doing for the A7, instead of going down here, you can go up a whole step. And sometimes I like to do those little sequences there. Okay. Those are on many of my etudes, but this particular etude is reinforcing the diminished 7 substitution on a dominant chord, getting that flat 9 flavor. So again, that means off the 3rd, the 5th, the flat 7, and the flat 9. It's very important that you can spell the dominant chords. I always ask my students, I don't tell them, but I do ask, and many of you know who are watching, you know, I say grab a piece of paper. You don't need your guitar. Whatever song you're working on, Sweet Georgia Brown, spell each chord. E7, E, G sharp, B, D. A7, A, C sharp, E, G. D7, D, F sharp, A, C. G6, G, B, D, E. Speaking of G6 now, G6 is equivalent to what minor 7? This is all very important to know. These are enharmonic, or I call them relatives. Barry Harris might call them siblings, or Pat Martino. You have different things, but these are just the same renaming, so I call it enharmonic chords. G6 is equivalent to E minor 7. So again, once you get these arpeggios down, you might say, oh yeah, I know my E minor 7 arpeggio. Well, you know G6. If you know G6, you know E minor 7. Okay? And I love the pentatonic scale too, because that's just one note shot, adding one note of the pentatonic. So that's going to lead me to the B section here. Okay, so let's do the second half of this etude. I won't make this lesson long. I know you guys are busy today, so but don't forget to do this if you're enjoying it, or type something in the comments if you're checking this out. This is now the second part. It's E7, A7. E minor. Fella, she can't get, fella, she ain't met. Sweet Georgia Brown. So on that descending, hey Joel. Joel says hello. Welcome, Joel. Joel, I'm assuming you're on Patreon. Thanks for being here. So there I'm doing the same thing on the E7, G sharp dim, A7, G dim, okay? And then on the E minor, I'm thinking G6. That's the relative minor, major of the minor. So I'm just doing this. Again, it's right there if you want to check out what I wrote on the E minor 7. I wrote E minor 7 ARP, but please make a note to yourself if you're printing this out that it's G6. Just make sure you know G6 and E minor 7 are the same thing. But by starting on G, you can call it G6. But what I'm doing here, I'll do it slowly, is I'm going from G6, E minor 7, and then I morph it into B7. And at any point, you want to be able to just kind of navigate through those chord changes. It's not easy to do. You got to kind of work out and visualize where those leading tones are, where those 4 notes are. For me, I like to think off the 3rd or the flat 7 especially. So I'm visualizing that B7 chord here. G6, which is E minor 7, B7. And then I'm doing this shape for an E minor 7, which is also G6, but the rhythm player is E minor, so this was a sweet shape. Okay. You can use this for your G6 or your E minor 7. That one's really nice. You get some velocity because it's a symmetrical type of a fingering, like the diminished 7. That was for the E minor. So E minor 7, diminished. For the B7, E minor 7, and then the diminished. We'll have to see what I wrote. Let's see. Yeah, that's what I wrote for the B7. And then to finish it out, while the band does this, I did this. And that's often referred to as the 2 names, G major blues, E minor blues. And my fingering that I'm using is this. 1, 1, 2, well, I'm talking about the intervals here. 1, 2, flat 3, 3, 5, 6. That's the formula. And that's the whole A tune there. So from that E minor 7, nice and slow, B7, E minor 7, B7. And then top, A7, give it a try, D7, and G6. But remember, we're doing the tonic diminished to create that tension. That's this, and then the G6. So it'd be this, then major, and then E7, A7, and then E minor, which is G6, B7, E minor, diminish, and that's it. So I hope that you enjoyed today's session. Little quick mini lesson here on the diminished substitution over Sweet Georgia Brown. Very, very common song to play in the swing and gypsy jazz vocabulary repertoire. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on Patreon, and we'll see you for the next live stream. Have a good day.